To the United States now, where the Supreme Court has ended 50 years of federal abortion rights. In a 6-3 ruling, the court overturned the landmark 1973 Roe Versus Wade decision that enshrined a woman's right to an abortion. The ruling is being described as a constitutional earthquake. U.S. states now have the power to set their own abortion laws. Around half of them are expected to restrict or completely ban access to abortions.
A choice no longer theirs. Missouri became the first state to ban abortions as Roe versus Wade was overturned. This clinic in St. Louis had been the last place in the state to perform abortions.
For me, it's tragic because we fought so hard to get this law passed in 1973 when it finally won the victory. Now, 50 years later, they have jerked this away from us.
Anti-abortion campaigners celebrated outside the Supreme Court.
So for the older generation of pro-lifers to see this today, I'm so grateful for them and their perseverance. And I'm glad that I can be on the second kind of generation that can push this in the 50 states now.
13 states had so-called trigger bans. That meant that abortion was immediately banned as the ruling came through, or it will be banned in the near future. A dozen or so other states could also be banning abortions soon. The end to Roe v. Wade was made possible after former President Donald Trump appointed a record 3 justices to the Supreme Court. In its ruling, the court argued that abortion was not what it called deeply rooted in U.S. history and traditions. For Vice President Kamala Harris, those words set a dangerous precedent.
That theory, then, calls into question other rights that we thought were settled, such as the right to use birth control, the right to same-sex marriage, the right to interracial marriage.
On the streets of New York City and elsewhere, supporters of the right to abortion showed their anger. In a country without universal health care and little or no parental leave, for them it's a matter of privacy and of having the right to choose for oneself.
Well, for more, we can speak to Carol Sanger now. She's a professor at Columbia Law School in New York, and she's also a scholar of reproductive rights. Professor Sanger, welcome to DW. Now, a recent poll actually showed that the majority of Americans support abortion rights. So does this ruling undermine the legitimacy of the Supreme Court?
Yes, in the sense it does, in the same way that their decision on striking down New York City's restriction on holding carrying guns in public did, because most Americans also favor that sort of modest reform in our gun laws. So the Supreme Court is really doing what its new majority wants to do. And it's very faithful to a sort of platform which uncannily mirrors the Republican platform and position on most of these issues. So yes, this decision has, and the gun one before it, have really hammered in the nail on the idea that the court is on the coffin that the court is sitting in as an independent branch of government.
Well, President Biden said that this decision must not be the final word, but are there any legal routes to somehow reverse the Supreme Court's ruling?
No, there are theoretical routes to doing it. So if there was a major change in personnel on the court, that would do it. But we have no inkling that that's in store. I wanted to just say in the report that preceded this conversation, it was mentioned that Trump had 3 appointments, and that was very significant. And I think it's also significant to note that one of his appointments was actually the appointment that was to have gone to Obama. It opened up during Obama's administration, but the Republican-controlled Senate would not give the candidate that Obama nominated a hearing. And so the seat, when Obama left office, passed on to the new president, Trump. So that's often called the stolen seat. The three appointments that he had were not all fairly acquired. I wanted to just, that adds to the picture of the court's legitimacy.
Well, there's also quite a bit of concern that this ruling could lead to other rights being scrapped, such as the right to birth control or same-sex marriage. How likely do you think that'll happen?
I actually think it's quite likely. How much time it will take is another matter, because it takes a while for cases to get up to the Supreme Court, usually 3 levels of appeal. And so it will take a few years. But the theory is now turned into actual practice, and it concerns the right to privacy. And what the Dobbs did yesterday was say there is no constitutional right to privacy, and it was using it in the case of abortion. But there are other rights that stem from privacy, such as contraception, as you mentioned, same-sex marriage, same-sex sexual relations, interracial marriages, all come from privacy, and they are all vulnerable right now.
That was Carol Sanger, professor at Columbia Law School in New York. Thank you so much for your insights.